Hello everyone, welcome to Car Chase Scene, the show that takes place entirely in my 2000 Honda Spaceship. I am your host, Brendan Welch, and today I'm going with my dad to go see Pet Sematary. But before we do that, it's time for reflections, and I saw Dumbo last time, so I need a 60-second timer. Can you set a timer for me?
Yes, I can. You want 60 seconds?
60 seconds. 1 minute. As some people call it.
Right, ready?
Alright, yeah, so basically what this is alright, okay, I'll just do it on the fly. I have 60 seconds to talk about Dumbo because it's hard to do justice to a movie right after you see it. So, Dumbo's not a hard movie to talk about, though, because it was pretty bad. Basically, Dumbo had okay visuals and very, very poor writing that honestly went together to make a pretty terrible movie. It thought of a lot of thematic elements that could have been used, but never really ended up coming to fruition, like potential love interests and addressing animal cruelty and all these other things. That really never ended up gelling together or finishing. So they had a bunch of like teases to themes that never really ended up happening. Also, what we were fighting against was really unclear. The antagonist changed from a guy named Rufus, who was whipping animals, to like corporate America being all greedy and buying everything, to just people being generally uncreative, to murder, because then Michael Keaton became a murderer. And it was bad. I only have 1 second left.
Boom, you're over.
Right,
that's it.
All Dumbo gets. Cool. So now, Pet Sematary stuff. So first, to get your movie brain moving, what is your favorite movie and why?
Oh, wow. So, favorite movie of all time?
Yes.
All right. And I guess Maverick doesn't count.
I mean, it does if that's your actual favorite movie.
No, Maverick, no Maverick.
It's
So,
good.
two movies that I cannot not watch, and that's Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where, if it's on TV, it doesn't matter what spot it's on.
A lot of
when
respect.
Shawshank Redemption is on, I'm going to pick it up from wherever it's at and follow it to the end. So, love Shawshank Redemption.
Nice.
And another one would be Gladiator. So, from all-time favorites, Gladiator. So,
Gladiator is very great.
yeah, those are probably my two all-time favorite.
Gladiator used to be my favorite movie, and then Denis Villeneuve made Blade Runner 2049, and I'm sold. So.
Yeah. Favorite book of all time, though, if we're talking, since we're going to Pet Sematary, Stephen King, somebody needs to do a movie on Doom McKee, because that is an awesome Stephen King
So
book.
from what I listened to of Doom McKee with you, though, I don't feel like they could make that into a movie. That seems like a lot of it is internal to the character's mind, and the movies are very show, not tell. So unless they had, like, I don't know, maybe like animated sequences of what was going on in his head or something, I don't know. You have to have something to deliver the same unsettling nature of Stephen King's voice in the voice of the movie.
Yeah, I get that. Great book, though. Doom McKee, pick it up.
Speaking of books, though, from what I listened to of Pet Sematary, this is going to be great. Because I only listened to the first, 10 minutes of Pet Sematary on Audible with you yesterday. And I like that it started off with the inspiration for why Stephen King wrote the story. And so you've listened to it more than I have. So, just give a quick little recap. What was, the inspiration for it?
Yeah, so Stephen King is basically playing on, I think, two factors. One, people in general naturally fear change, so he's playing on that fear of change. And then the ultimate fear of finality, which is the change through death. So he's playing on, I think, two of those fears, and basically he plays out the what if in the most horrible way is what he's trying to do. So it's basically you have near misses in life where things almost happen, almost go completely wrong. Somebody almost dies. Things that could have just been tweaked one way or the other could have changed the entire course of history. And Stephen King basically falls down and walks down the what if path in the book. So that's his focus point on this one. And in his mind, in his words at the beginning of this Pet Sematary book, this is his most scariest, darkest piece. Yes.
Yeah. So and also some of the literal things that it took too was that story he told about how they lived in a house with a pet cemetery across the street in this random field in the woods.
Yeah.
And his daughter, Stephen King's daughter's cat did get run over by a truck. And his son almost got ran over by a truck, or at least in his mind. His son ran into the street and he ran and caught him. So, that kind of thing, too, is another what if. All of those little what ifs of...
So the other thing, too, that makes the book so great is the thing that you just mentioned that would be hard to make Doom McKee into a book, and that is the fact that so much of the book is kind of peeling back that layer of reality. And you've got this doctor who's got this awesome, potential of a career, and he's trying to gain his own confidence in his own self to live up to the degree he has now. And he, it kind of goes through and talks about the strife between his father-in-law and him, and how his father-in-law tried to basically buy him off and to get him to leave and not marry his daughter because he basically thought he was a loser.
I didn't know about this.
Yeah, so there's all these underlying things that Stephen King in the book is able to peel back, because he's basically able to say the things that the guy's thinking, that if you were to really put out in reality or really would make you a horrible person. But we all have those horrible thoughts. Like for instance, like at the very beginning of the book, his daughter, when they first get to their new house that they move into Maine, his daughter falls and skins her knee. And it's one of those, he's a doctor, and it's kind of a minor wound, and she is going crazy, crying and screaming about the wound, and doesn't want the antibiotic type stuff put on there, and it's just a very, very minor wound. And in his mind, he wants to slap her. But for any logical father to say that out loud, I want to slap my daughter for crying, it's just like would make you the most horrible person.
Yeah.
But he's able to unpeel that layer of reality and talk about stuff like that the main characters are thinking, not so much what they're actually saying in real life. So I don't know how they're going to make that work in the movie to really portray that kind of mental wrestling of reality.
Because the easy way to do it is just have a narrator, right?
Yeah.
But that feels very cop out for movies, especially. And so I think that factor might honestly, it's either going to get lost, or Jason Clarke is going to be the greatest actor of all time. Like if we can get what he's thinking based off of little things like that, maybe it'll zoom in on his hand and it'll be like super tense, or like little things, nuance, introductions, and then who knows, maybe we'll have a narrator and you'll just hear like, I want to slap my daughter in some ethereal voice, and then you're like, what? Stop it! Like, don't say that. Who knows?
The other thing too is the book is 15 hours long, and the movie's going to be an hour and 40 minutes.
Hour and 40 minute runtime.
Yeah.
Which I think is plenty of time for a scary movie, because that's another thing about this movie. It has all these thematic elements and stuff. This is a scary movie. Like, I watched the trailer for it. I was scared the whole time, and like I'm a wimp with horror movies. Us wasn't too scary, but I mean I still didn't sleep super well. And so at the same time, I'm still jittery. And the guy who directed this is Kevin Kolsch, and he directed, tell me if you've seen any of these. Have you seen Starry Eyes, or heard of them at least?
No,
Holidays.
No.
Mama 2. Not Mama 1, Mama 2.
No.
And then Scream, the TV show.
Can't say that I've seen any of those, but I'm not a big movie buff, so that's not surprising.
I am a movie buff, but I'm not a horror movie buff, so I'm not surprised I hadn't heard any of those either. But honestly, I mean, it's a lot of... He's got a horror movie repertoire. This guy's good at being scary, based off of what he's directed so far. And so something I just want to go ahead and get you thinking about, and we're going to talk about it in the next half, is think about some scenes in the book that you are scared to see, like with your eyes. Like scared, because in the book it's a little easier to suspend your disbelief, and go along with it and be like, okay, yeah, this is real. And then you put the book down and you're like, all right, I'm good. Like, it's not a real thing that's going to come in my room and, try to kill me tonight.
Yeah.
But if you can think of any scenes that you are scared to see in the theater, just kind of put that on deck.
I can think of a few. Do you want me to say them now, or are we going to save these?
We're going to save
these for after.
Just want your mind moving. Also, just off observation, because I was asking you about the general plot of the book, and in the book, the little boy gets run over by the truck and resurrected and stuff.
Yeah, and I said the trailer has the little girl.
Yeah, it's the little girl. So, little girls are scarier. Just being honest.
Yeah, and I guess they also, little girls they really tug at your heartstrings, I would say, a little more than a boy, though. Having one of each, I guess they would both. Yeah. They both have their own tug on a different string, but
yeah. No, I agree. I think it's an intentional change, and I think one of the big reasons for that change is like what you said, yeah, but also like having the little girl with hair covering her face walking slowly down a hallway. Like you're freaked out automatically. Whereas if it was a little boy in the same situation, for some reason, I am not as scared. I am more scared of little girls trying to come kill me than little boys. And I don't know where that exact, fear comes from. But I will ask you this: was the book creepy? Like, did you get a little nervous?
Was the book creepy? Yeah. I mean, there are some moments in the book, and I don't know how. Do you want me to get into what the book talks about specifically, or we want to not have?
We're trying to go no spoilers mostly,
okay.
But I mean.
Yeah, there are some creepy scenes in the book, but it plays out over a much longer time period, and you're not listening to the book in one sitting. It's a 15-hour book. So
reading it for everyone else in society.
Yeah. I'm a big Audible fan. I don't read anything. I always listen to it on Audible, but it's phenomenal on Audible, by the way, as a little sales pitch, and I do not get anything off Audible, so though I should in life.
Yes, you should.
It is a phenomenal listen. And it is creepy. There's several, and I can say this, I would think without being a spoiler, but there's several graveyard scenes in the book that are played out, and walking through the woods scenes that are played out that get a little eerie feeling in the book.
Gotcha. So obviously you're reading a book or listening to a book, you're not going to jump. There's not going to be a moment where you're like freak out.
No, I don't remember any of those type moments.
Now, reading a thing jumped out of the woods, or a hand reached out and grabbed, or something like that, are you expecting this to be more of a jump scare movie, or an atmospheric build payoff kind of horror movie?
I think there could be several opportunities for jump scare.
Darn it.
Several opportunities
jump
for that.
scares, and I have I think the same opinion as most movie buffs about jump scares. They're not as good as atmospheric. If you can be on edge and nothing happening and nothing actively scary or attacking is happening, then the movie people are doing something right.
Yeah, there could be both. So there could be some atmospheric scares that turn into
jump scares at the end.
Jump scares, or those scares where it's not so much a jump scare, but it's the atmospheric scare that all of a sudden makes the hairs on your arm stand up and your skin kind of roll back and forth just from a crawling perspective.
What I think of in the sense of atmospheric scares that can become real jumpy and jarring and kind of scary are the have you seen the movie The Lazarus Effect?
No.
It's on Netflix. We need to watch it. So it's about this girl it's about a very similar thing actually. It's about this doctor, and they're working on, him and his team are working on this serum that's supposed to, you can inject it into people and bring them back to life. They test it on a dog, and the dog comes back and kills this lady. Spoilers for Lazarus Effect. So this lady dies, who's also on their team, and we just made it to the parking lot. She is brought back by this thing, and it's going around and doing all these crazy, killing people and all this stuff. It all takes place in one night. But there's this one scene where, I think it's in this movie, he's looking at the security camera, and he sees something happen, and then he looks up at the map, and you see the dot ping where he is, and it was right next to him. And that's the moment when you're like, oh wait, everything I just saw that was really scary that I felt safe from is right there. And then he turns around and sees it. So it's that's what I'm nervous about here, is you realize, wait a second, the threat's really close.
So yeah, so there's one scene in the book that I hope they play out really well in the movie that is basically the main character, Lewis Creed, thinking he's having a dream and not being able to tell if it's a dream or reality.
Oh no.
And things that play out and line up that make it almost both.
This sounds awesome.
It's going to be good.
I'm really ready for this.
The book is phenomenal.
So we're in the parking lot. It's time for hopes and dreams. That's one hope and thing that's going to make your dreams come true for this movie. Is that it? That scene's awesome?
No. I think for my hopes and dreams, so it is, if the movie can somehow portray that peeling back of the natural reality and get you to see those thoughts that are deep, dark, and disturbing in some cases that people actually think but nobody ever talks about.
Yeah.
If we can get to that point, then
I
think it's going to be phenomenal.
Big old hope and a big old dream. Mine's a little bit less about the movie and more about myself. I hope I can watch the whole thing and not have to close my eyes. The first horror movie I saw in theaters was It, and the way I coped with it and pretended to be brave for my girlfriend was I just closed my eyes.
Yeah, and it's
while
another Stephen
watching
King.
And yeah, it's also Stephen King. So I'm just really not okay right now and nervous, and I want to sleep tonight. That's my hope and dream, is that I go to sleep and don't dream of this movie tonight.
I think it would be phenomenal to be freaking scared to death in this movie,
honestly.
and to where you can't sleep tonight. That would make it memorable.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So,
Do you have any last words before we head on in?
no, I'm looking forward to this. It's gonna be phenomenal.
All right. We will see you
Big
all on the
Stephen
other
King
side.
fan.
Well, that was crazy.
That was intense.
Intense and scary. I'm nervous and I have anxiety.
I feel like I have an ab workout and I'm a little bit sweaty.
Yeah, no, I am very sweaty, and palms are sweaty and knees weak and all of that. Arms, mom spaghetti. So, we agreed on a 5-minute no spoiler timer.
Yep.
I'm going to start it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so first of all, out of 10, what would you give this movie? Just raw, you just watched it walking out of the theater.
As far as a scary movie goes, I mean, I was scared.
30.
So I'd have to give it, 8.
8.
But as far
Yeah.
as how they left out so many nuances that the book picks up, that I'm giving it like a 2, because the book is so much better, especially if you get the audio version on Audible. I don't care if you get an Audible, but if you get the audio version and you listen to the book, phenomenal.
Yeah. So I guess if you're comparing it to a book, that's not fair. It's a movie, but I get where you're coming from, because you did read the book. I did not. So as just a movie, and as somebody who likes movies and is super passionate about like cinematics and what they can do with that, I think they delivered as much nuance as they could. I'll give it a 7, because it did have a couple of issues. I don't know, maybe an 8. 7's too harsh. I agree with your 8. It was very good, I think. I enjoyed it. In a very, self-harming way of enjoying things. It's like, that was fun. That was really scary. I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah, the thing that was kind of cheesy to me, there was a couple of cheesy parts. The one that sticks out, it was the very beginning. So wait, this could be a spoiler. I guess I should
It's the
wait.
first 5 minutes of the movie.
Okay, the first 5 minutes of the movie. So the girl so they're setting up the characters at the beginning.
Yes.
And first off, Judd is such a better family friend in the book.
Yes.
And he comes across as a little creepy at the beginning of this movie. And then all of a sudden they make him a family friend, which is a little weird, because they don't accept him in the first couple scenes as a family friend. He's kind of a weird guy.
We'll talk about that in a minute when we can actually spoil, because there's reasons he's creepy. Well, my other thing, so I guess an easy thing to talk about, no spoilers, is, the characters and the visuals. So, who are we looking at, how'd they look? I think the dad was a great character. I think he did have a lot of nuance. I know that it didn't get to the thinking horrible thoughts thing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's hard to communicate with a movie. Like, you can't do that without a narrator. And I'm very against narration in movies, personally. But they didn't get to that. I think the little girl was the most dynamic character in the world, because of the fact that she literally wasn't the same thing halfway through the movie. So she was a great. I like the way she was executed, in that she was like a symbol of innocence, and she was simultaneously the initiation of the conversation about death that they would have throughout the movie, and also the answer to the scary question that they asked about it. She encapsulated the theme of the movie really well.
And what about the fact that the dad was essentially selfish throughout the whole movie, when he kept saying, "I wasn't done with her yet," and things like that, where he basically it was him playing out his own desires to not lose, and to not, first off, not to disappoint his daughter with the cat, but then also not lose her with her. So I don't know. It's so hard not to compare this to the book.
Well, yeah, because the book's fantastic, I've heard, and as you said, and just listening to the first chapter of it with you earlier, it was great. And then just to talk about visuals too, it looked really good. The gore was top notch. were a couple of scenes that I was about to throw up. None of it looked fake.
Exactly. So the opening scene with at his new job at the university when they brought the kid in was just tough. Like that was tough for me.
Yeah, no,
that was one when you asked me before. Think about some scenes that I want to see that I would be afraid to watch. That was one that I was already thinking about that I'm going to be afraid to watch. Is when they knowing what the kids are supposed to come in looking like through the book description.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to see that scene.
No, I wouldn't have either. And then the little girl looked real scary when she came back. The veins were a nice touch. Like she had the blue. It was like all the blood in her body wasn't red anymore. Oh,
ooh, that actually did scare me just a little bit.
we can spoil it. We did it. All right, everything's on the table now.
All right, so the little girl at the very beginning, when she walks in by herself up into the pet cemetery, and that's where they first introduced Judd, which in the book is not in that format. Like he's so much more of a family friend the way they introduce him.
He's much nicer.
But in the book, like it was a little cheesy that she started to crawl over the deadfall, and she steps on a hornet's nest, and you see bees flying around, and one stings her, but the girl's just laying. She's just not even crying. She's not.
She doesn't react.
She doesn't react at all. She's just sitting there, and he walks over to her, picks her leg up, and takes the stinger out, and then rubs dirt on it, and she never reacts. Like that was just cheesy. It's like, okay, that was dumb at the beginning.
I think either that was bad writing and the fact that they didn't make her an actual, like, a feasible 9-year-old anybody. If they got stung by a hornet, would freak out. And then if there was some random dude in the woods that they'd never seen, they would also freak out.
Yeah, and hornets hurt. Exactly. So she's in a cemetery, so she should be freaking out, and she's not freaking out at all.
It was midday, but even still, I would be, I agree. I don't think that was very true to life. And that was one of my criticisms of the movie, too, was there was a couple situations where I feel like the characters weren't themselves. I think the mom was the best actress in the whole movie. I think she did the best out of everybody.
She was good. You could see her, and they tried to bring out the fact that she had a sister that died, and that she was essentially played a role in her sister's death. And the book really draws that out much more, and draws her pain out much better. So that was good. The mom was a good character.
No, she was very good. So you were talking about scenes that you were scared to see. Let's go ahead and go through.
Yeah, so that was one of them. Him digging his daughter up, in the book it was his son. The grave site was a little more open, like he just throws the shovel over and doesn't really care about noise in the movie.
Yeah.
In the book he's like in a neighborhood almost where people can see him parked on the side of the street, and there's a process that he has to go through to get over the wall and to get over to dig up his son.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a totally different piece from that perspective.
Yeah.
So, that was one of them, and then obviously the scenes burying up at the pet cemetery, over the deadfall. Yeah.
That's not even the name of the. So the pet cemetery is really just the stopping block. Like somebody put that there, so if you wanted to bury something, go no further. This is here.
Right.
But if you do go further and you do bury something, they come back. And that was one thing that I thought was neat about this movie, is that it one of the best things that this movie does do is the way it shows you information. And it set up this, like, kind of mystery. You didn't really think much about it. It was pretty throwaway. It was when the girl was combing the cat's hair, and she's like, "Church, you have something gross in your hair," and then the cat, like, scratches her.
Yeah.
And then later on, after the dad buried the girl in the pet cemetery, he's giving her a bath, and then he brushes her hair, and like the brush gets stuck, and he like parts her hair to the side, and you see like stitches over the back of her head,
staples,
staples. And so like something had literally just like opened up her head and been like, "All right, this is alive. Put that in there. Staple, 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 staple." And that was So that was like a cool way to say, this isn't Ellie. Like, there's no.
The software has been replaced.
Yeah, there's no. Because what I was thinking originally is there was something that would like pull your spirit out of hell or heaven or wherever and just stick it back in your body.
Yeah.
But you're just like freaked out because you don't want to be back on Earth, or you do if you're in hell.
Yeah. Well, in the book, the paranoia and the fear of death comes through a lot.
Yeah.
So the quote was a little wrong on the movie too. They didn't quite bring it out. So he said, "A man's heart is stony," but in the book, it's "A man's heart is stony. He grows what he can and tends it." And it's just basically like people are grasping at whatever things that they can control in life and grow in life, and they're trying to tend that, even if to the point of trying to hang on to his daughter, or in the movie, but his son in the book, even after death, and try to bring them back as much as he can, because that's all he knows and all he can do is that selfish, so trying to tend that. So
For sure.
I don't know. It was the movie, from a fear factor, it felt like scene after scene after scene was set up to keep you on edge.
Which I think is very great design as far as a movie is concerned.
And I just kept wanting to flip the lights on, like, cut the dang lights on.
Yeah, there's something with horror movies. I feel like even if the lights were on, it would still be scary, because then the supernatural force can turn the lights off to make you feel even more powerless. But I'm glad that didn't. I feel like they just like beat around the bush. Like, okay, we could have him cut the lights on and then have him flicker back off, or we could just have him be so enamored by the fact that he raised somebody from the dead that it's not gonna matter, and he's just gonna handle it in the dark. It didn't rely too much on jump scares, which I liked. There were a couple, but most of them were pretty atmospheric. There was one scene that was in the trailer, and it was in the trailer, and I saw it coming a mile away, and I was still so scared. And the mom has just had this vision. So the mom's sister is like horribly disabled. She has like a twisted up spine, and did she get hit by a car? What happened?
No. I think in the book
it wasn't always like that.
Yeah, she had like some sort of a spinal disease.
Okay, because you see a picture of her like fine. The mom had taken a picture of her, and she was okay.
Yeah.
And so like the mom has been having these like visions of earlier on in her life, whenever her sister had like fallen down a dumbwaiter and died. I'm assuming she died, right?
Yeah, she did die, and I don't remember what role the mom in the book in the movie played in killing her sister in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a little more, if I remember correctly, it was a little more
direct,
like
she wanted it.
Yeah, like she wanted
almost
it.
Almost
murder, not quite, or even if it was murder, it wasn't to the point where she would get called for it, because it was the way it was portrayed was so innocent.
Yeah.
But that fear of in the mom of that she did something wrong had definitely was there.
And then they point that out in the book, or in the movie. I think since they might not have had the time or the writing capability in their eyes to capture that right. So what they did is they had the little girl. Later on, Ellie has been resurrected, and she's like in the house, like trying to kill everybody. And she stabs the mom. And she's talking to her, and she says something like, she's talking about how you should like regret killing your sister or something like that. And the mom says like, I'm so sorry, and the little girl's like, no, you're not. You prayed for her to die. You're lying. And so that was the way they kind of got to that, which was one line.
That was a little bit of the unpeeling of the reality versus what's the mental thought process.
You prayed for her to die because somehow, which Ellie is literally something from not this place. she's from somewhere else, because she knew her thoughts, and she literally said, hey, I came from hell. And that was the other thing too. So did Judd kill his wife? Because it sounds like he killed his wife from the way she made it sound.
In the book, she's still alive at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
So, yeah.
At the beginning.
In the book, she's still alive.
At the beginning, you said. She dies during the book?
Yeah, well, she has a heart attack during the book, and the doctor's there, and he saves her, and it goes through that. I can't remember. It's been 2 or 3 years since I listened. I can't remember if he takes her and buries her.
Well, yeah, either way, the little girl, whenever she goes to Judd's house, and there's a very scary sequence where she ends up stabbing him to death. Right before she stabs him to death, she's like, your wife is burning in hell because of what you did to her. And then he's like, you don't know my wife, you're not my wife. And then the little girl pulls her mask off, and she like her face transforms into the old lady.
Freaky. Yeah, that was freaky.
And the lady's like, "Don't you miss me?" And he screams, and then it changes back to Ellie, and she's like, "And we're gonna kill you for what you did to her." He goes, "Oh, you're gonna try," and reaches for the gun, and then he just gets stabbed brutally and several times.
So the other thing too is you have to wonder why did Judd tell Lewis about the place to begin with? Like he already knew, he'd already taken his dog and humans up there and buried them, and he knew, and he still was compelled to tell him. And it's one of those kind of things about it's one of those secrets, and how secrets just kind of wiggle their way out of you, and that you just can't keep them even if you know that they're not good. And that was
and he had a line about that too, like that he said, "Man, you make up the sweetest sounding reasons just to go back up there, because it's like up this mountain." And so he's talking to Judd, or to I can't remember the guy's name. Lewis. Gosh, I'm so scared. No, he's talking to Lewis, and near it's in the middle of the movie. He's like, "I never should have told you about that place. It was such a mistake. Like, he said, you make up the sweetest reasons to come back up there." He says, "The voice in your head that feeds off your grief." Yeah. And so it's like, once you've been there and you know what it can do, every time you feel sad, you just know there's a way out. And it presents itself as, it'll just be like it was before. But then you do it, and your whole family dies, and your house burns down.
Well, in the book too, so they make the reference that Judd in the book was born in 1900, and he's 83 years old. So it's 1983 essentially when it took place in the book. Gotcha. And it talks about how it's a hike up into the woods, and they've got to climb over the deadfall. But it talks about in the book how it gives you such energy when you're going up there to bury somebody like that, and how that's how one of the ways that his selfishness comes out is he's staying young, and every time he's going up there, so it's just basically feeding him energy when he takes. And
he says that too. Whenever they get up there at the top of the hill, he goes, "You feel that?" He's like, "Yeah," and he like just kind of shakes off a little bit. He's like, "This feels good."
Yeah,
because it makes it easy for you until after it happens, and then everything goes to crap. And that was one thing that the movie did really well too, is it set up the expectation that this is wrong, but it's kind of crazy how he just sort of goes along with it. And there's even this part where it's in the first time where Judd and him are both going up there to bury the cat. I'm just gonna squeeze around this person. They're going up there to bury the cat, and he's got this look on his face whenever Judd starts going up these creepy stairs into the mountain. He smiles. It's like this weird Indiana Jones about to go into a temple kind of like adventure smile. And I was like, that made it more scary. The fact that he was kind of going along with it, understanding like this is wrong, but this is cool. Yeah, and it was sort of the force of the place enabling him. And then also you get the sense that there is actually a thing living up there, but you never see it. It's implied that it could be the Wendigo, which is like the human with the antlers and runs around and eats people. Yeah, well, that was when they were flipping through the book that had the all the Indian pictures and
the legends.
Their symbols on the tree. That's what they talked about. In the book, he's warned, like he's saying. So Judd is warning Lewis when they're starting to go up there. If they hear things, he talks about loons again in the book. He's like, if you hear these things, don't look at them and don't respond to them if they talk to you. So it gets a little more in depth about what they're going to experience, and it talks about the fact that they're going through quicksand and they're going over those things. It even makes a point to like say, like Judd keeps saying in the book, it's 44 steps up to the top, and Lewis keeps correcting and go, no, it's 45. And I don't know why they do that, but it was just one of those weird.
So Lewis keeps correcting him, or
Judd Lewis keeps correcting him. Those 45 steps.
How does he know?
Well, I guess he counted. I don't know.
In the book or something. Okay.
Yeah, the book. But as they were walking up those steps, they up through the rocks, and they up to the very top to bury the cat, and then his daughter later on. I wanted to count the steps to see if it would have matched up. But
it didn't show up. It didn't show up for long enough.
Yeah, you couldn't tell what that was. But I think that would have almost made the movie better to make that scarier, that scene, because it wasn't bad.
No.
It had you tensed up every once in a while, but if he had even just said, hey, don't respond if it talks to you, and then you just heard the voice once, that would have been enough right there, just to keep you on edge the whole rest of the time, because you got kind of comfortable when the dad smiled, there was music playing, right? Because that's the other thing with horror movies too, is like it cues you into when they're going to scare you. Like it'll turn the music off. And so in all those scenes where the music's up and there's like people are smiling, even if it's like in a scary situation, they could have made that more tense by adding the superstition to it. So that's another criticism. See, the more I hear about the book, the better it sounds and the worse the movie sounds.
I'm telling you that there is no comparison.
Yeah.
No comparison.
And so just as a movie on its own, as far as what it could have done differently, the ending, in my opinion, was pretty disappointing. Because I don't know, I think that's the part
was
in
freaky,
me.
so basically you're left unsure. You're left assuming that they're going to go kill Gage and then go bury him. Like, that's what you're left assuming.
Because at the end of the movie,
they all rejoin in on the other side together as a family, and on the dead side.
Mm-hmm.
And
the living dead side.
Yeah, that leads you to believe like they do Pet Sematary too. Is they just going to take this off the rails and?
I don't think they can. I don't think they can. Because the way the movie ends, the final sort of showdown is the little girl is going through the house trying to kill the family, and the mom and the son lock themselves in this room upstairs and push a desk in front of the door, and the little girl breaks in, and so the mom breaks the window and tosses Gage out to Lewis, who has just come back from old man Crandall's house, or Judd's house.
Judd's house, yeah.
Old man Crandall. And whenever he gets Gage, the mom gets stabbed, and then whenever he runs up to save the mom, the little girl knocks him out, and so the dad has to go out in the woods and go find him. And it turns out the little girl's already buried the mom. The mom comes back, and the mom kills Lewis while Lewis is trying to kill the little girl, and then buries him, and then they all three come back towards Gage, and that's where the movie ends. So it's an intense and very foreboding ending. I feel like they could have. I think in some situations, horror movies are scarier whenever the hero wins, because they have to live the rest of their life with that in their mind. Because that leaves it open for more what ifs, especially since that's what this movie did over and over and over again, is it set up what if after what if after what if, and then went there and went there and went there. Leaving one at the end where you just don't know could have I think made it a little bit more memorable than answering the question, yeah, he does die and gets buried.
Well, they don't answer the question. Yeah, I mean, obviously they don't
even ask
car,
it.
Yeah.
And so that's not even a what if question about Gage. He's gonna die. I'm talking about Lewis. I think it would have been almost more scary if Lewis kills the little girl and then he escapes from the mom but doesn't kill her and gets Gage and leaves. So the mom's still out there, and he has to live the rest of his life knowing, I watched my daughter die and then killed her, and then she came back and killed my wife. So, that's horribly messed up to say, though. But I don't know. I think that would have been even more scary. I don't know. At this point, I'm just trying to rationalize in my mind how I'm going to go to sleep tonight. As far as hopes and dreams are concerned, did it peel back enough layers of reality for you to be hopeful?
I mean, not for you to see that darker side of the person. Yeah. I mean, you could see the selfishness through his actions, but it didn't peel back enough for you to really see the darker side of the person that the book is able to peel back through having that narration that takes place of the thought process. And that for me is what makes the books so much better, and specifically the audible version of the books, so that you get the narration from the narrator speaking those things in inflection into your headphones. That's the best way to, in my opinion, to enjoy the Pet Sematary.
Well, I think that'll do it. I'll update you guys on my hope and dream and reflections next time as to whether or not I slept. We're gonna try, but I think that'll be all for us. Do you have anything to add before we sign off?
No, I think I'm good. It was a very interesting movie. Glad to be part of the podcast.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you all for watching and/or listening, and I'll see you next time.